starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go. Bass in your face. Bass in your face.
Good evening, everybody. Happy Easter to all, or as I like to call it, Happy Resurrection Day. Welcome to another episode of Uncommon Sense with Jose Negron. Now, for the benefit of those of you who are not familiar with the channel or watching this channel for the first time, the reason why it is called Uncommon Sense because here on this platform, we talk about everyday issues where we try to find logical solutions. But not evidence. I also have another YouTube channel called Latina Diaspora where I discuss issues pertaining to Latinos in the United States. The link to that channel is in the description. I want to let everybody know that I'm currently live on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Also, the subscriber mode has been enabled for the first 5 minutes, meaning if you're not a subscriber and if you wish to enter a comment and chat, you must be a subscriber for these 5 minutes going into the live. As always, I want to give a huge shout out to all those who have already subscribed to the channel. Whether you've been a supporter from the very beginning or just recently joined, I really appreciate your love and continued support. I also want to give a huge shout out to all those who follow me on social media, as well as those who allow me to enter into your devices and those who watch from the clouds, even the haters. So, what I'm going to ask you to do, if you have not done so already, I'm going to ask you to please subscribe, like, and set the bell notification to all. So, therefore, whenever I do produce content, I will, you'll be able to either catch it live or catch it on the playback. So, as you can see by the thumbnail, the topic for tonight is how to negotiate. Um, it's a skill that we all need in order to to get along with other people, deal with problem solving, or when it comes to trying to purchase items and things of that nature. It is to be able to negotiate is an art that's needed, and unfortunately, not everyone practices it, or they don't practice it very well. So we're going to be talking about that for the next few minutes. But before we get into the main topic, we're going to have another episode of In My Words. Now, originally, this live was supposed to be held scheduled for 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. However, Radical Latino is scheduled live for the same time, and I wanted to participate, which is why I scheduled it, scheduled it for 8 o'clock. Now, what I'm going to be talking about is, of course, the resurrection. Okay, which is something that I will be discussing tomorrow night at 9:30. Now, the resurrection itself follow a chain of events, that were a week long. First of all, it began with our Lord's entry into Jerusalem and people, crying out, Hosanna, Hosanna, and greet him like a Messiah. And many of the same people who were greeting Hosanna, Hosanna, in a few days will be crying out, crucify him, crucify him, crucify him. And of course, it shows how fickle we can all be. But it was during this week when a lot of things have happened. Of course, the institution of the Eucharist, which happened on Holy Thursday, Good Friday. Well, that's when Jesus, our Lord, for all of us, took, died. He shed his blood in order for us to gain new life. And of course, Sunday, which is the rest of, when he rose from the dead. Now, what makes it unique as far as other religious leaders like Buddha, Confucius, Muhammad, um, their bodies or their remains are still in their burial places. None of them had an actual resurrection. However, if you go to the tomb where it is believed where Jesus was buried, you're going to find that the tomb is empty. And that's the whole point, that Jesus rose from the dead. Jesus defeated death. Jesus defeated sin. And now, thanks to his death and resurrection, we all are able to have new life with God. We are able now to have fellowship with God. Okay. And that is the reason for the resurrection. Now, of course, other people choose this day to focus on other things, such as the Easter Bunny, Easter egg hunt, um, wearing your finest clothes, and things of that nature. Well, there's not necessarily anything wrong with that, and actually, you can use the symbolism of the Easter egg to show that Jesus is no longer in the tomb by saying that the egg is empty. And trying to look for Easter eggs is, it kind of reminds us where Mary Magdalene and the disciples try to find Jesus because they couldn't understand that Jesus rose from the dead, that Jesus had to rise from the dead. So and they didn't read, and they um, didn't understand it. Even yes, good evening, Keisha. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for that support. And of course, she has her own channels, so I'm gonna ask that you show some love to her. Check out her content. She has two channels. One of them has to do with hair and her dreadlock arteries. Well, obviously, I don't have a lot of hair left, so I cannot, put into practice what she does. But she does share how to, you know, take care of your hair properly. So I'm gonna ask you to show some love and subscribe. But getting back, I mean, there's nothing wrong with Easter egg hunts. There's nothing wrong per se with um, wearing your finest clothes and the Easter bunny. But nothing. Well, we mustn't forget the true meaning behind this day: that Jesus rose from the dead. Okay. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about is it seems like Donald Trump is trying to get rid some of the women from his cabinet. Okay. Now, of course, there are many reasons why he's doing it. I mean, some of it because of incompetence, some of them basically because they failed the current administration with tasks where, in all fairness, is very difficult to achieve. Um, it kind of reminds us of the situation that sometimes we could be in thankless jobs where we are placed with a lot of pressure, and there's always the pressure to to do well. There's always the pressure to try to do many things. One thing that I always stress, um, they can give us 5 assignments. They can give us 10,000 assignments. Guess what? You can only do one assignment at a time. Number one. And number two, there's only so much you can do in a workday. And being the time is limited and you can only do so much, the wise thing to do is to speak with your immediate superior and ask for guidance. No, to give priority out of all the multiple tasks that people have. Pick one that is the highest priority. Focus on that until everything is done, and then you focus on the next task which requires your attention. Because when you try to do multiple things at the same time, there's always a possibility that you may not do it well. There's always a possibility that you're going to make mistakes. So whenever you are in an work environment when you have multiple things to do, it's proper and appropriate to ask your immediate superior, out of all the things that you are instructed to do, ask for guidance regarding which one of those tasks actually should become priority. And whatever you don't get done today, you don't get done today. It's that simple. If you're able to do that, that will alleviate a lot of the stress. Now, with that being said, we're going to get to the main topic. Now, before I continue, let me just state that the link to join the panel has been pinned. Should anyone wishes to opine regarding the topic at hand, they may do so. Let me make this perfectly clear. I know I said this on every live I do, and I will continue to do so because it's necessary. If I never seen you before, if I never heard from you before, I will insist that you come up in the backstage to make sure that no one tries to flash any pornographic images, which would cause the people of YouTube to take down their stream. Once I determine that you're not going to do that, that you are going to abide by my guidelines, then I'll let you on the plan. Okay. Um, I don't think I'm going to be here that long, maybe 45 minutes, to an hour. Okay. 30 on this channel. I will be live on my other channel at 9:30 p.m. And then I will be live on Saturday 10:30 p.m. or 10 o'clock. With my Friday night is just that um, I have some social engagements which I will be attending. So as a result, I have to adjust my schedule accordingly. Now, as I stated, um, negotiation, what is a discussion between two or more parties. And the purpose of that is that there's something that you wish to get, or something that you want. And of course, when you're engaging with another person to try to negotiate, that person is going to want something from you. So it's a discussion where you know, be honest. You state what you wish, and then you discuss which one between the parties involved. Let me just see this. So let me just explain to you as far as what's needed for negotiation. Effective negotiation involves thorough preparation, active listening, and building rapport to reach a mutual beneficial agreement. Now, that is the key. It has to benefit all parties involved, because if it does not, you're not going to reach an agreement. Key strategies include setting clear goals, understanding your best alternative to a negotiated agreement, otherwise known as BATNA, making the first offer, and using silence to your advantage. Focus on separating the person from the problem, trading items of different value, and remaining calm under pressure. So that's what is needed for negotiation. Okay. Now, there are some things that are necessary in order to negotiate effectively. And the first thing is, of course, prepare thoroughly. Know your goals, your walkaway point, and best alter- your best alternative to increase confidence. So you need to know you need to set status. You need to establish a clear goal. You need to establish what is possible solutions and strategies that if you're not able to reach it, you go. Build rapport. Establish a connection with the counterpart, making the negotiating more collaborative. Okay, so one thing you should never do is be adversarial. What you do is try to you be cordial, you be respectful, and you will state what you want, but try to come up with something that it could be a mutual agreement. Make the first offer. This act can act as an act to influence the rest of the negotiation, especially if you have good information. Okay, this is particularly true if you say you're buying a vehicle, or you're buying a car, or you're buying something, any type of good. Okay, it's very important that, well, when you are going to want to get something, and of course you will want to pay the lowest possible price. At the same time, the seller is trying to get the highest, get you to pay the most possible price for a product. Because while you're trying to get something that is as inexpensive as possible, that person's trying to get something where get the most out of it. Use multiple simultaneous offers. Present two or three options of equal value to you. This reveals the other party's preferences. Okay. Now, let's say you want to purchase a land. Okay. And let's say you offer, I don't know, $25 for the land. And the seller is asking for 50. Okay. So there's a big gap between $25 and $50. So what you might do is you might offer an alternative. You might say something to the effect, okay, I can pay 30 for the land and maybe 10 or 15 for something like uh, for light bulbs or a lampshade or something that that you can use with your lamp. Another option is think long term to consider the relationship, especially if you will deal with the party again. Now this is very important. Okay, if you're gonna go to this person and you suspect that you're gonna go to this person to purchase items on multiple occasions, consider relationship. Try to establish a cordial, respectful, and a relationship where it's mutually beneficial. Let me just check and see if anyone's watching. Okay. And for the benefit of those who are just tuning in, tonight's topic is how to negotiate. This is a skill that we all need. Okay. Particularly if you're thinking about long-term things like a house or a car. Now, when you during the negotiation, there's certain things that you should implement. The first thing is actively listening. Focus on the other party's concerns rather than just your own position. Okay, and this is very important, particularly if you're talking about purchasing items. Obviously, that you're trying to purchase items at the lowest possible price. The seller at the same time is trying to get the most possible price. Okay, so you're gonna make a first offer. Chances are the other person's not gonna accept it. But what you do is you listen, and then you try to come up with a second offer or a third offer uh, that will be mutually beneficial because what you're trying to do is you're trying to purchase an item and the seller is trying to get the most possible. Okay, because when everything is said and done, he wants to make a profit, and when everything is said and done, you want to get something that you can use within a reasonable price. Ask open-ended questions. Ask the how and why to understand the other's side's interests. Okay, this is very important. Okay, and the reason why it is important because when you ask open-ended questions, you can ask questions regarding what makes what makes this item unique? What makes it different, say another one? Why? Okay, so you basically what you're asking is why should I purchase this item at this location when I can go to another location? and you pay very close attention to what being said. Okay, maybe the item has a guarantee, or maybe the item serves a function that you were trying to seek, or might be other things to consider, uh, other than just the price. Okay, because you know what you're saying. The saying is, you get what you paid for. Okay, sometimes it's better to pay a little bit more if you know that the quality of the item is going to be very high. Focus on interest, not possessions. Look for the why behind the demand to find creative solutions. Uh, this is this is very important. So what you're doing is you try. Okay, you gotta ask that person questions. So and what that does, it helps you to see the perspective of the other part. Okay, which goes about a very interesting point, a very important point is you need to be adjustable. You need to be able uh, to evaluate, and a part of that evaluation process is done by asking questions. What makes this product unique? Why? Okay, why does the other person feel that way? Okay, that's very important when it comes to negotiation, is to understand, and it's not based everything just on what you're thinking and you're thinking, like you first, you second, and you third. You are thinking about the perspective of the other person. Another thing to consider in negotiation is manage emotions. Keep your composure if necessary. Take a break to prevent anger from ruining the deal. Okay, this can because one this is very important. Good evening, Don Armando. Thank you very much for stopping by. And of course, my friend Don Armando has his own YouTube channel. So I'm gonna ask that you show some love, support his channel, and check out his content. So the topic for tonight is how to negotiate, and this is something that's very important. Now, it's very important to keep your emotions in check, particularly particularly if you're talking about an item which you want, and of course you want to pay. Oh, I'm doing well, thank you very much. I'm doing well, thank you. Happy Resurrection Day. Um, and sometimes and sometimes when the negotiation is very long, it can create tension. So you need to be able to put your emotions in check, and if you need to take a break, do so. Lavish signs. Silence can make the other party uncomfortable, often leading them to reveal more information or make more concessions. Okay, there's a time and a place to speak, and there's a time to be silent. Okay, and silence can be effective. Okay, particularly if the person is truly wants to either sell you something or convince you of something, and what that person will do is share give you more information, where you can use that to your advantage. Now, here are some common techniques when it comes to negotiation. The just ask approach. Many people fail to negotiate simply because they don't ask, okay? Or they don't know how to ask. They don't ask relative questions, okay? Like, for example, what is your position? What is your viewpoint? Or if you're talking about trying to purchase an item, what makes this item unique? Why? Okay, okay, why by purchasing this item is gonna make my life better, or why purchasing this item is going to benefit me. So you need, so these are questions that you need to ask. Sometimes people don't succeed because they don't ask questions. Search for trade-offs, trade-offs that are low cost to you but high value to them. Okay, because again, the whole purpose is you trying to get something at the lowest possible price, and the other person is trying to get something, sell you something at the most highest possible price. So you try to find a middle ground, okay, where which means you might offer a little bit more, but you need to understand the why, or maybe you can get something along um, with what you are trying to acquire. Assume nothing. Be willing to ask for what you want and test assumptions about what is possible. Now, this is very important. Okay. You never make assumptions. Okay. Because, okay, now I don't know if you remember the old joke, and this is an old joke. Never assume, because when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. Okay. Ask questions. Okay. There's nothing wrong with asking questions. Ask questions on why, what makes, as far as the other person's position. If you're trying to purchase something, ask question why is it's worth what you're trying to get, so you can have a deeper understanding regarding what makes it unique. Now there's going to be times when negotiations are not going to be successful. Okay, and that happens um, when you try your best and you're not able to achieve a mutually beneficial agreement. If the deal is worse than your best alternative to solution, then walk away. Okay. If Let me just give you an example. If you're trying to purchase an item, and again, let me just use the example of the lamp. Let's say you want to you offer to pay $25, and the person is offering this lamp for $100. Okay. So what you might do is you might increase the price to say $40, and that person is not budging and still wants to wants to charge $100. And let's say you say, okay, I'll purchase land say for $45, but I'll get something else for 20. And the person is still being stubborn, not willing to negotiate. There are times where when that happens, the best thing to do is just walk away. Which which brings me to my next point. Be prepared to walk away to maintain your principles and avoid a bad agreement. Okay. Because sometimes there are people that are not going to negotiate in good faith. There are certain people that are very stubborn. There are certain people um, that have this attitude, which in Spanish we would say, que siempre tiene la razón, which is a loose translation is that person is always right. And that person is not willing to um, negotiate. That person is not willing to try to understand your point of view or things of that nature. So instead of getting into a bad agreement, the best thing to do is to simply give up and walk on. Okay. So getting back. Okay. So getting back. The fact of the matter is, negotiation is a skill. It is something that it's going to be beneficial. It is something that we all need. Okay, because we're going to be dealing with different types of people. Okay, and it's going to be many situations where we will be in a situation where we're going to try to negotiate. And of course, the whole point is trying to reach an agreement when it's mutually beneficial. And that is the key right there. That is mutually beneficial. In other words, it just benefits you, but it also benefits the other party or parties. Unfortunately, we're living in a day and age where some people they don't know how to negotiate. Some people don't believe that negotiation is important. And let me tell you something. It is very important, particularly when it comes to like when you get involved into relationships. Okay, you need to be able to negotiate boundaries. Okay, set boundaries um, to let the other person know what you will allow and what you won't allow. Okay. Um, Let me just give you a case in point. When it comes to this platform, okay, um, there's some things I will, that I will allow, and some things I won't allow. I will allow people that have opposing viewpoints. I will allow people the opportunity to express them if they can express it in a mature way. I allow people that will disagree with me because maybe they see things in a different perspective that I have. Okay. What I won't allow is people trying to dictate to me um, how to run my platform, how to deal with my guests, how to deal with people in the chat. Okay. As a host, I dictate what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. Okay. And if you are not able to deal with that, then I would suggest that you do not approach this platform. Okay. Because when you're negotiating boundaries. You're negotiating things that you're going to accept or not accept. Also, it works when it comes to dealing with other people. You gotta make clear what you're going to allow and what you're going to not allow, and you're also going to enforce those boundaries as well. And you're also going to state the consequences of people who are not accepting your boundaries, which may eventually lead to basically no further interaction. Okay. I have several ties with other individuals because they did not respect my boundaries and things of that nature. Um, or they tried to impose their their views, their desires on me without any consideration about what I feel. Okay. Because when you are actively negotiating, you're not only taking account what is your perspective, you're also taking um, account the perspective of the other party. Because again, the goal of negotiation is to come up with a mutually beneficial agreement. Now, I keep saying mutually because it has to make sense. Not only does it have to make sense to me, it also has to make sense to the other person as well. Okay. Because if it doesn't make sense to you, then you're not going to enter into an agreement. And if it doesn't make sense to the other person, at the same time, that person's not going to enter into an agreement with you either. So it has to be mutually beneficial, which goes to the fact that it has to be mutual respect as far as values are concerned. Okay. You're probably wondering, why does values get into it? It does, because one thing to bear in mind is that not everyone will share the values that you have. We all have different values, and a lot of it has to do with with the way that we were raised, and we all have to be mindful of that. We have to be mindful of the fact that when we're dealing with different people, um, we have different people who look at things through different perspectives. So we have to learn to keep our mind open to the extent that we can, without us giving up our position, without us giving up our values. And believe me, I've seen in my walk, so in my daily walk, people who honestly they don't know how to negotiate. They get frustrated, they get upset, and they get emotional. Because one thing about when it comes to negotiation, it requires a certain level of maturity. It also it requires understanding regarding human nature. Okay. If you're able to understand that each party is trying to look for their own benefit, then you're able to try to reach a consensus regarding what's going to be mutually beneficial to all parties involved. And there's different applications when it comes to school, applications when it comes to work with your colleagues, applications regarding negotiation when it comes to your family, also negotiation regarding your loved ones, also negotiation regarding what is acceptable when it comes to dating and what is not. And you need to be able to discern what is the difference between what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And bear in mind, what is acceptable to you may not be perceived acceptable to the other party. And that's where negotiation goes into place when you try to find a middle ground. You try to find some way to reach a consensus that's mutually beneficial to all parties. Okay. Excuse me. You have to, yeah, you have to excuse me, but every so often I do need to look into Instagram to see who else is watching. Um, that's the welcome. Unfortunately, at times I tend to ramble on, and sometimes I keep forgetting that I need to look into Instagram to see who's watching. And also, one thing is very important when it comes to negotiation is to be able to understand what options are available. Okay. And it's very important because there might be certain options that you may want to pursue, but they're not available. So you need to be mindful as far as options that are available. And you need to be mindful of the fact that whatever you're going to offer, whatever you're going to try to do, whatever goal you're trying to reach, it should be something that's going to be beneficial, not just to yourself, but beneficial to the other party or parties. And this is very important, especially if you're dealing with multiple people, to be able to negotiate in order to reach a consensus. And that could be a challenge because when you're trying to reach a consensus with say two, three, or four people, that could be a challenge because everyone has their own different perspective. Everyone look at things differently. So by being able to negotiate, each party will get something that they wish that they want to get. Now I've been talking for a little bit, so I don't know if anyone wishes to hit the link and opine regarding the topic at hand. Otherwise, I'm just gonna end it. Okay, like I said, I'm not planning to be out here this long. Um, Obviously, most people are going to catch this on the playback. Okay, which is and of course it's a Sunday night because people probably be with their family or things of that nature, or they're getting ready to go to work um, tomorrow. But I wanted to talk about the how to negotiate because it's something that we all need to learn in order to achieve the results that we wish. And and again, it must be mutually beneficial to all parties present. Now, tomorrow night, I'm going to be live and I'm going to be talking about the resurrection. our Christian concept. So I'm going to be talking about the resurrection and how how the Bible defines it and what actually happened. Uh, what are some of the concept? What are the results of the resurrection of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ? So I'm going to be talking about that. Now, of course, let me make this perfectly clear. And I do continue to state this disclaimers. When it comes to Christian topics, I want to make it perfectly clear. I'm not trying to compel anyone uh, to embrace Christianity or embrace my version of Christianity. I'm just sharing Christian topics based on biblical principles. So what I always ask that those who are not Christian, hear me out before you make whatever assessments. Okay, and it's more of a, this is what I believe, and this is my evidence, so to speak. And of course, um, the playback end, you're more than welcome to enter whatever comments that you wish. Just bear in mind that keep it respectable because if you do not, the comments are going to be deleted. And of course, if you have not done so, please consider subscribing. Uh, People in the chat to Kesha's channels, which is Diaries and Donna Mama's channel. And of course, please consider subscribing to my channel and make sure that you set the notifications to all. So therefore, whenever I do produce content, you will have the opportunity to catch it live or catch it on the playback. And of course, I'm going to close the same way that I always close. We must do everything possible to avoid the presence of the mentally and intellectually challenged, because if we fail to do so, we will be infected by their stupidity and massive insanity. And of course, whatever we say and do, we should do to the glory of God. And I thank you very much for your attention. I thank you very much for your viewing, whether it be live or on the playback. Good evening, Irby. I'm just wrapping up. The topic for tonight has been how to negotiate. So I have been talking about how to negotiate, which is basically trying to come up with an agreement or a benefit, something that's going to be mutually beneficial to all parties. Because not everyone know how to negotiate. Not everyone is able to deal with the fact that okay, that's perfectly fine. And of course, my friend Irby also has his YouTube channel. So I'm going to ask that you show some love for him. Subscribe to his channel, check it out. Now, he usually does lives like late at night. So if you're like me, most likely you're going to be catching this content on the playback. And the reason why I uh, decided to talk about how to negotiate, because not everyone can negotiate. Not everyone knows how to negotiate, and there are many situations where negotiation is necessary, particularly when you're dealing with other people, and it is a case of give and take and things of that nature. So, with that being said, again, I wish all of you a happy Resurrection Day or Easter for those of you who prefer to think of it that way. Um, have a wonderful week. Don't let life stress you out too much. Learn to relax. And I'm gonna say, have a good night. Take care. Stay blessed and peace.